Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Israel responding to continuing weekend aggressions, including ongoing Palestinian riots in Jerusalem and rocket fire from Gaza. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Naftali Bennett presenting Israel's position on the world stage, but is it enough to counter the seemingly biased coverage? And finally, tens of thousands celebrating across the country over the weekend. Revelers and pilgrims from all over the world marking the end of Passover and the Christian eastern-orthodox Good Friday. Israel cracking down on Palestinian violence over the weekend, riots and incitement increasing in Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, and in Gaza, with Palestinian militants even firing rockets into southern Israel 3 nights in a row. ILTV's Asaf Nissan reporting.
Amidst the ongoing Palestinian incitement over the Temple Mount Jerusalem, Palestinian terrorists firing 3 more rockets into southern Israel on Friday, and this for the 3rd night in a row, with previous attacks landing in southern Israel and damaging a civilian home. Then on Friday, 2 rockets landing in open Israeli fields and another landing back in Gaza near an UNO school in Bet Hanun, the missile lightly injuring 1 passerby. But rather than the expected IDF airstrikes as were seen in previous nights, Israel closing the pedestrian crossing with the Strip, effectively meaning economic sanctions against Gaza, as tens of thousands of Gazans holding work permits to cross into Israel daily. And Israel's security forces saying the checkpoints will only reopen pending security assessments on Sunday. Further, in the event that the rockets continue, the IDF reportedly still ready to resume retaliatory airstrikes, or even a wider operation similar to the Guardian of the Walls from last year. Meanwhile, on top of security along the southern Israel border, Israeli security forces continuing with activities in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria. Overnight Saturday to Sunday alone, Israel reportedly operating in multiple towns including Kalandia, El Bire, Hebron, and Jenin, and at least a dozen terror suspects apprehended, including an individual suspected of assisting his relative, Raed Khazem, who killed 3 Israeli civilians and injured dozens more in a terror attack in Tel Aviv earlier this month. Then back in Jerusalem, for the sake of the so-called status quo, Jewish visitors to the Temple Mount will be restricted until further notice. The move typically made around the last 10 days of Ramadan, which this year ends May 2nd. And as with previous years, it's intended to restore calm, as Palestinian rioters at the compound increasing their riots, calls to violence, and public support for terror groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. The Temple Mount is considered to be the holiest place in Judaism, as it's the site of the ancient temples, and in the recent years, Jewish hardliners increasingly calling to allow Jewish prayer at the site. Then, during Passover this year, a record of 4,600 Jews coming to visit, many praying quietly to themselves. But today, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is considered the 3rd holiest place in Islam, sits atop of the Temple Mount complex, and under agreements with Muslim religious authorities, Jews are barred from praying there altogether, so any non-Muslim prayer is seen as an affront to the status quo.
Now joining with more on the weekend security updates, founder and CEO of Israel's Defense and Security Forum, Brigadier General in IDF Reserves, Amir Avivi. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, starting in the south, did Israel do the right thing, in your opinion, by closing the borders with Gaza economically as opposed to airstrikes?
Well, I think that the problem we have in the south is we have no deterrence. Deterrence you can achieve in 2 ways. Either the leadership of Hamas is threatened, and we have done that in the past. We attacked the leadership in the past, or there is a viable threat to attack on the ground. Without these 2, there is no real deterrence in the south, and then you are very limited with what you can do. You can either conduct airstrikes, as were done previously, mostly against the infrastructure of the rockets, or economical sanctions, as are done now. And this is a problem for the defense establishment. They don't have a lot of tools to use. So they're trying to work with what they have.
So why not use all of the tools at their disposal? Economic sanctions like closing the border and targeted airstrikes against Hamas infrastructure, etc. To watch full episodes of ILTV's Israel Daily and tons of other content from Israel, visit our website at iltv.tv or download the ILTV Plus app.